At the end of World War II, a major event occurred, which became a human tragedy, changed the world view, and made people realize that the world would never be the same again. On August 6th, the United States dropped a uranium atomic bomb nicknamed Little Boy on Hiroshima. The name Little Boy may sound cute, but this bomb is a very deadly weapon of mass destruction. The President of the United States at that time, Harry S. Truman, gave Japan an ultimatum to surrender within 16 hours after the bombing of Hiroshima. He warned of a rain of debris from the air that had never been seen before on Earth. However, Japan chose to continue to survive and fight. 3 days later, on August 9th, the United States dropped an implosion-type plutonium bomb nicknamed Fat Man on Nagasaki. This bomb made Japan surrender unconditionally. However, behind these events there is a less well-known story, namely the role of a famous figure, J. Robert Oppenheimer, in the development of the atomic bomb. This was part of a project known as the Manhattan Project. This video provides a disclaimer that the video content is based on various sources and personal interpretations, and I can hear suggestions if there is something wrong or inappropriate in the content of this video. The story of the Manhattan Project is one of the darkest pages in World War history. The project originated from the United States government's concerns about the potential development of nuclear weapons by Nazi Germany in the late 1930s. At that time, German scientists such as Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann, along with Austrian scientist Lise Meitner, discovered that the absorption of neutrons could cause the fragmentation of uranium atoms, which was an early step in the development of nuclear weapons. Enrico Fermi, an Italian physicist, saw great potential in this discovery if applied in the military field. He then contacted the United States Navy with a proposal to build an atomic weapon. The response from the United States government came several months later after Albert Einstein wrote a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, warning of the potential dangers if Germany developed an atomic bomb. On October 9, 1941, President Roosevelt gave approval to begin the atomic bomb development program, which would drastically change the world. He also collaborated with British Prime Minister Winston Churchill on this project. However, a more drastic decision came after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, which prompted the United States to become actively involved in World War II. The next day, the United States officially entered the war. The Manhattan Project then allocated large resources and funds to develop nuclear weapons. In August 1942, this project took physical form and was officially known as the Manhattan Project. In this project, the two important figures who took the lead were J. Robert Oppenheimer and Major General Leslie Groves. The Manhattan Project involved more than 100,000 people, including some of the leading scientists of its time. Robert Oppenheimer, often referred to as the father of the atomic bomb, played a key role in the development of the atomic bombs that were ultimately dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. During this project, a way was discovered to produce an atomic bomb that had great destructive potential, and this changed the history of World War. The Second World War ended with 2 atomic bombs destroying 2 cities in Japan. And this was the beginning of the nuclear era, which changed the world order. J. Robert Oppenheimer, as you mentioned, was a very intelligent scientist and played an important role in the development of nuclear weapons. He is also known as a charismatic leader in this project. J. Robert Oppenheimer was a scientist who had a number of unique and prominent characteristics in his personality. Although respected as a brilliant scientist, he was also known by some of his friends as someone who maintained ambiguity in his personality. In 1924, Oppenheimer was accepted at Country University, where he studied physics further. However, his friends called him a Class 1 imagination manipulator, describing him as someone who had self-destructive tendencies. He smoked frequently, thought deeply about physics, and was thought to lack sleep and food. After that, Oppenheimer moved to the university, which is a leading center for theoretical physics, including throughout the world. He succeeded in earning a PhD, and in 1927, he returned to Harvard to study mathematical physics. He is also a member of the National Research Council. In early 1928, Oppenheimer continued his studies at the California Institute of Technology Caltech. He is respected as a pioneer in establishing a school of theoretical physics in the United States. Over the course of his career, he made his name in an impressive variety of research fields, including astrophysics, nuclear physics, spectroscopy, and quantum field theory. One of his important contributions was in the theory of cosmic ray rain, which advanced the understanding of quantum tunneling phenomena. In the 1930s, he was also the first to propose the idea of the existence of black holes, which is now an important concept in astrophysics. However, its most widely known role was in the development of the atomic bomb during World War II. In June 1942, Major General Leslie Groves appointed Oppenheimer as director of the Los Alamos Laboratory, which became the center of the Manhattan Project to develop the atomic bomb. It was here that Oppenheimer led a team of scientists to create the nuclear weapons that were later dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The success of this project changed the history of World War and had a major impact on the development of nuclear technology. The Manhattan Project was not originally designed to develop an atomic bomb, but the initial plan was to create a nuclear cannon. Nuclear cannons are weapons designed to release plutonium isotopes at such high speeds that two masses of plutonium collide, creating a powerful nuclear reaction. However, this plan proved very difficult to implement due to its complex technicalities, and the project was eventually abandoned. The Manhattan Project began to be designed around 1942 and lasted until 1996. It involved more than 100,000 renowned physicists from the United States, England, and Canada. They worked together to understand physics, nuclear reaction mechanisms, isotope separation, and design a prototype atomic bomb. Eminent scientists such as Robert Oppenheimer, Enrico Fermi, and Richard Feynman were part of this project and contributed greatly to its research and design. Robert Oppenheimer, whom we previously discussed, played an important role in overseeing the laboratories at Los Alamos, which became a major research center in the Manhattan Project. This project is very expensive, with funds of around $1 billion each year. More than 90% of these costs are used to build research facilities and produce physical materials, while the remaining 10% is used for weapons development and production. A number of tragic stories are associated with the Manhattan Project, including to scientists who were exposed to lethal doses of radiation. One of them was Harry Daghlian, who accidentally dropped a carbide furnace stone onto a plutonium core, causing a runaway nuclear reaction. Another was Louis Slotin, who had an accident while fiddling with the top of a beryllium neutron reflector, which exposed him to deadly radiation. The plutonium core involved in this incident is referred to as a demon core. In 1945, the first test of a plutonium weapon, called Trinity, was conducted near Alamogordo, New Mexico. Although the reasons for choosing the name Trinity are not entirely clear, J. Robert Oppenheimer referred to several poems in explaining the name choice. This test was successful and resulted in a nuclear explosion that changed world history. By the time Trinity was tested, the United States was already in a strong position in World War II. And after this test, President Harry Truman had new power in his hands to end the war with Japan quickly. History also records Trinity as the beginning of the nuclear era. The Manhattan Project had indeed achieved its goal in the context of World War II. By giving the United States the ability to use nuclear weapons against Japan and win the war. The two atomic bombs produced in this project, Little Boy and Fat Man, played a key role in forcing Japan to surrender. However, this project also had a huge and controversial impact. The use of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki caused enormous damage and a very high number of casualties. As you mentioned, the Hiroshima bomb killed an estimated 90,000 to 120,000 people, while the Nagasaki bomb resulted in the deaths of 60,000 to 70,000 people. In addition, many experienced acute radiation injuries or illnesses. The humanitarian impact of the use of atomic bombs has been morally questionable, and their use has sparked long-standing ethical debate. The Manhattan Project also left a complex legacy in terms of the nuclear arms race during the Cold War and the role of nuclear weapons in world politics. Although the project achieved its goals in the context of war, evaluations of it have always been fraught with controversy and moral questions. It is a topic that remains a subject of debate to this day. And the use of nuclear weapons is one of the most historic and controversial events in human history. The question of the moral responsibility of the scientists and research involved in the Manhattan Project is a complex and profound one. This is one of the ethical debates that has influenced thinking about nuclear weapons and the role of scientists in their development. In this context, there are several points of view that can be considered. 1. Involvement of scientists. The scientists involved in the Manhattan Project, including some prominent scientists such as Robert Oppenheimer, had a limited role in the political decisions that ultimately led to the use of nuclear weapons in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They were part of the team that worked on this project with the understanding that the ultimate goal was to win World War II. However, some of them then felt a moral dilemma about the consequences of using these weapons. 2. Political and military responsibility. The decision to use atomic bombs was ultimately the responsibility of politicians and military leaders. The President of the United States, Harry S.N. Truman, was the one who made the decision. Scientists can provide advice, but the final decision rests with political leaders. 3. Moral considerations. After the use of atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and realizing the dire human impact, some of the Manhattan Project scientists felt a moral dilemma. Some of them, including Robert Oppenheimer, became vocal in their opposition to nuclear weapons and support of international nuclear arms control. 4. Ethical questions. The use of nuclear weapons presents complex ethical questions. Can the use of these weapons be justified as a way to end the war more quickly and avoid more casualties? Or do the dire humanitarian impacts outweigh the strategic rationale? This is a question that remains debated in the context of the history and ethics of war. It is important to remember that the historical context, stress of war and uncertainty at that time were very different from the perspective we have today. However, the experiences of the Manhattan Project and the use of the atomic bomb remind us of the importance of considering the moral implications in the development and use of technologies that have profound humanitarian impacts. Thank you.